Before we begin today, I want to start with a moment many leaders recognize, but rarely say out loud. Earlier this year, I was speaking with a senior executive who said this quietly: "I love my team, I believe in our mission, but lately I feel like I'm holding people together more than I'm actually leading." She wasn't failing, she wasn't disengaged, and she wasn't ungrateful. She was carrying people systems that were never designed to carry this much weight. And that moment is why today matters. Because leadership exhaustion is rarely about lack of faith, competence, or commitment. It's often about leading people without enough structure, clarity, or shared ownership. Good afternoon, and welcome to today, which is day 2 of the end of the year business strategy series for Kingdom Women Executives. I'm Trina Jefferson, founder of Trepson Management and Benefits Consulting, and also the Chief Operating Officer of Crowned Christian Women Executive, which many of the speakers are members of. I also have with me our Chief of Innovation for Crowned Christian Women Executive, Yolanda Crenshaw.
Hello.
Today's focus is human resources, leadership, culture, and system strategy, because how we lead people determines whether leadership is life-giving or quietly draining. This is a joint session between Trepson and Crowned Christian Women Executive, created specifically for women leading teams, organizations, institutions, and missions with both responsibility and faith. Before we move into our speakers, I want to briefly name how today continues beyond this hour. At the end of the session, I'll share a QR code for a 5-minute organizational audit focused on people systems, leadership load, and cultural strain. Immediately following this session, I'll be hosting a live Zoom room where you can take the audit in real time, see what your results reveal, and ask questions as you're reflecting on them. That Zoom space is designed and supportive, not overwhelming. You don't need to prepare anything, just stay through the close to receive access. Let me clearly name our leaders that you'll hear from today. First, Dr. Karen Hills Pruden, former Chief Human Resources Officer at Norfolk State University, and also CEO of Pruden Global Business Solutions. Part of her work centers on people-centered executive decision-making, HR governance, and leadership systems. Second, Dr. Kara Skidgel. She serves as the Texas statewide coordinator of tiered services for Region 16 Education Services Center, supporting leadership systems across the state. Her expertise focuses on scalable people systems in complex environments. And third, our very own Yolanda Crenshaw. She is CEO of BRIO ÉLAN and formerly served in a VP senior engineering role at Citigroup, operating in high-pressure corporate environments. Her work focuses on preventing burnout and protecting leadership longevity through corporate wellness systems. Each of these women has led people where decisions carried weight and systems mattered. Here's the leadership reality we've seen repeatedly in 2025. When people's systems are unclear, leaders become the system. They become the stabilizer, the translator, the emotional buffer, the decision catcher. That is not weakness. That is overextension. Today is about shifting from leader-dependent people management to system-supported leadership. Our first speaker today, let's get her. Okay. Oops. I want to move her back over here. 1 second.
I see Dr. Karen in the.
I do too. Okay, here we go. Our first speaker today is Dr. Karen Hills Pruden. Dr. Karen, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do have a presentation too.
Okay. Let's get that up for you.
Yes, there you go.
There we go. All right. What would you like to tell us about your presentation today? How are you going to center us?
So I want to tell you that in terms of leadership, there's a lot of focus on decisions versus impact. And so we want to talk about impact and the role of people in making those decisions. And so talk a little bit about people-centered decisions and the advantage going into this 2026, this new year.
Okay. Should I move to?
Nope. So okay. I'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead from you. Okay. So as we enter into next year, which is, look, we're in the fourth quarter of 2025. And so we should all be strategically planning for 2026, those, particularly those who are supervising people, supervising talent. And so as we move into 2026, the biggest leadership risk is not AI, contrary to what you've heard, or even budgets or the market shift. I believe it's decision making that ignores the human cost of those decisions. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Many leaders believe that they have a people problem, often when you hear feedback from leaders. But I believe what they actually have is a decision-making problem. And so decisions are sometimes being made without understanding the workload realities or without clarity about role capacity or without even recognizing emotional and psychological strain. And so when people disengage, productivity drops before they even exit. A lot of people talk about turnover, but before turnover even happens, when people disengage, productivity drops. And so as leaders, we are really no longer measured by what we decide, but by how the decisions land, the impact of our decisions. And so I want everybody to kind of think about your last major decision, those who are in leadership. And did it look good on paper, but maybe cost you employee morale, maybe the momentum of the business, or even the trust of your employees? Well, that's the reason why we're talking about people-centered decisions and how the shift towards thinking about our people and the decisions that we make and how it impacts our particular business. Next slide, please.
Yes.
Awesome. So what you see here is, I call it's the 3-question filter that every leader should use when making decisions. Contrary to popular belief, most leaders shouldn't just be making decisions off the hip. It should be strategic, should definitely be intentional, and should happen with a little research in terms of our system capabilities, research in terms of our talent capabilities, and research in terms of our process capabilities. And so this 3-question filter, I believe, should be applied to every decision that is made in leadership. And I want to talk a little bit about this 3-question filter. And so before approving any decision in the coming year, because we can't change what has happened in the past, I believe leaders need a filter, which is this 3-question filter, not to slow decisions down, but to make our decisions more strategic, more smarter, and more intentional. And so the first question, who absorbs the impact? Not just who is doing the work, not just who executes, but who works longer hours based on our decision? Who is carrying the emotional labor of our decisions as leaders? And then who becomes the bottleneck based on our decisions? And so those 3 things need to be considered in terms of who is absorbing the impact of the decisions that leaders make. And so that is the first question. As an executive blind spot is assuming that capacity equals compliance. Just because employees comply does not necessarily mean that we have the right capacity to facilitate the decisions that have been made. The second question you see here is, what behavior does the decision reward? Are we as leaders rewarding overwork? Again, goes back to capacity. It goes back to hours, and it goes back to bottlenecking. Are we rewarding silence? A lot of times, with employees doing the work and we don't get feedback. So are our decisions rewarding silence? And are we rewarding firefighting instead of planning? Getting the work done, just getting the work done. People always follow what gets rewarded, not necessarily what we as leaders state. And so something to consider for question number 2. And then question number 3, which is data. Now, I'm a STEM girl, have always been a STEM girl. I love technology and analytics. Show me the numbers. We need to look at the numbers for forecasting. We need to look at the numbers to determine how we're doing. And so what data will prove that even our decisions work? We should always consider the data before we facilitate and implement the strategy for the decision. And so what data will prove that what we're proposing work? Not just opinions. What is the evidence that we're going to have to show from our decisions so that we can show a couple of things, possibly reduce rework in a situation based on maybe our decisions, or do we have data that shows faster service times, faster product development times, faster customer service times? But there needs to be some data that we can consult to see where we were before the decision was made, where we are now, and it should be ongoing. We should be tracking the data throughout the process so that we can make tweaks along the process, as well as if there's an end date on the process, we should be able to consult the data at the end of the process so that we can consult the numbers. And then also there should be data in terms of being able to monitor, improve engagement metrics in terms of not only our employee engagement, but our customer engagement and departmental engagement if we have multi-department engagement. And so if our decisions cannot be measured, then the decision in terms of the work that we've done, the research that we've done prior to the decision was not complete. And so considering these 3 questions, who absorbs the impact? What behavior will the decision reward? And what is the data? What is the numbers before, ongoing, and after our decision has been made? This is how we as leaders protect both the results of our decision and the people, keeping in mind we're talking about the people, without sacrificing either. Next slide, please. So leaders who thrive in 2026, they won't be the ones who make the fastest decisions. They'll be the leaders who make the clearest decisions. And the only way that they can make the clearest decisions is if they go through the filters. They're strategic and intentional. They do their research. They consult their numbers, all of the things that I mentioned to consider before. And their decision-making is people-centered focused. And so when our decisions as leaders are people-centered focused, when we have people-centered decision-making, it reduces resistance. It increases the trust not only from our staff, but also from our customers, if our customers and our clients are impacted. And then also it strengthens the execution of our decisions. This approach, people-centered decisions, it doesn't make leaders soft just because you go through this exercise. It actually makes us more strategic. And so our value as leaders, when people understand our decisions, increases. And then when metrics validate our outcomes, then we can show proof, for future decision making on how thorough we are in terms of researching, and benchmarking our decisions. And then our culture supports the performance of our decision making because there's a positive aspect, a positive outcome based on our decision making. So that's what I want to talk about in terms of people-centered decision making. And in closing, before turning it over, I'd like to say that next year in 2026, as we prepare for 2026, because it is coming, the most powerful leaders won't just manage results, we'll also manage the impact. And then that is what we'll be graded on.
Absolutely.
That's what I
really
have.
powerful. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Well, Dr. Karen, in your presentation, you introduced the people-centered decision filter, including 3 questions every executive should ask. Who absorbs the impact? What behavior does this decision reward? And what data will prove it worked? What's up here so I can see you? Can you walk us through how you think an executive should filter this in real time, especially when decisions are urgent on politically sensitive?
Oh, good question. So when decisions are urgent, you want to think about one or two. Well, you want to think about all 3 of the questions, but sometimes you, depending on what the urgency is, if it's a spur of the moment urgency, then you want to think about the impact on people and the impact on process. And so who absorbs the impact? Do I have the right people with the right skills and the right talent in the right positions to facilitate what it is I need them to do in this moment? Because in terms of getting the work done, your people who are actually responsible for doing the work, they have to have the capabilities at that moment because you don't have time to train anyone up or anything like that. And so who absorbs the impact is going to be your talent. What behavior will this decision reward? Well, in terms of reward, it will be the completion of not only the task that is at hand, and then if the completion of the task ends in product or service, then you have the customer or client satisfaction, but also the satisfaction of knowing that you have assessed capabilities prior to giving a directive to your employees, and that based on the information that you have at that particular time, you're making this directive to your staff or your supervisors or your managers to do this action with that consideration in mind. And in terms of what data will prove this works, preferably you have some previous data in terms of completion times and who is needed and who had the capability to do it. And so if it is a sense of urgency, you have to do that quickly, which means that us as leaders, we're responsible for knowing the capabilities of our staff in terms of system, processes, and talent ongoing so that we can make those quick decisions when things come up in case of an emergency. And in things of, in case of politics, that's a little tricky when you use the word political climate. But businesses have visions and have missions. And as long as you fall in line with the mission and the vision, and you keep in consideration all of those internal things, processes, talent management, and systems, as long as you're in line with your company mission, then you can deal with whatever fallout that will come as a result of political.
That's really important. What is the mission and core values of the company to keep the decisions anchored? I have some more questions. Yolanda, did you have a question before I continue? Can't hear you. Nope.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I couldn't find the mute. No, Dr. Karen, your presentation was amazing. You actually had me thinking about things I need to add into my 2026. So I'm so glad I'm part of this presentation today, because I'm going to add some new things into my year in review. So thank you so much for everything you provided today.
All right. So you said clearly that burnout is not an engagement problem, it's a decision problem. From your experience as a CHRO, what are the hidden costs leaders underestimate when people alignment is missing?
Oh, great question. So one of the hidden costs is that turnover, that you will know that there's a problem by turnover. People disengage and productivity reduces immediately. It's not once they exit. I'll say it like that. It's not once they exit. And so as a leader, we need to have boots on the ground. My phrase that I use, boots on the ground, about what is going on, what is impacting our people, what changes in process that may, and how it may adversely impact our people, so that we will know when our people are possibly on the brink of being exhausted, so that we can actually prepare for those type of situations. And so it goes back to knowing your staff, knowing your processes, and knowing your systems, so that you can proactively immediately be responsive to things that happen and things that may be ongoing, even if they are hidden or silent, because it doesn't always show face just by an exit. People quit on the job and come to work every day. So productivity is suffered way before turnover happens.
And can I add something here too? That term that you're talking about, Dr. Karen, is called presenteeism, meaning they're present, they're at work, but their productivity is all the way down because they're checked out of the job already. So they may not have checked out officially, but you can tell by the productivity that they're producing that they're not there. So it's presenteeism, meaning they're present, but they're not really present.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, you know, some people start planning their exit before they actually make the exit, right?
Absolutely.
Smart ones do.
So for a final question here, how should faith guide executive decision-making so leaders practice stewardship instead of self-sacrifice and build systems that honor people without carrying what God never intended them to carry alone?
Oh, wow. So say it one more time.
Yes, ma'am.
When you start talking about intertwine, you know, I have to separate faith a lot. So I just want to make sure I answer it the right way. So say it one more time.
Here we go. How should faith guide executive decision-making. So leaders practice stewardship instead of self-sacrifice, and build systems that honor people without carrying what God never intended them to carry alone.
Okay, I got it. So for me, I can only speak on how I do it, but I do know quite a few other faith-based leaders who exhibit and conduct themselves very similar to myself. Just because you're a faith-based leader doesn't necessarily mean that you have to proclaim that you're a faith-based leader. You let your actions speak for themselves. You follow the principles of your faith without announcing them. It is in your behavior and how you treat people, in the decisions that you make, without necessarily announcing. So me with a 30-year history in corporate, 20 years in human resources, I haven't had the liberty of being able to announce my faith. However, my actions and how I treat people and how I consider people, and how I do my job has led people to ask me faith-based questions like, what church do you go to, or something like that. And so I truly believe that we can follow the tenets, we can follow the scriptures, we can follow the principles of our faith through our actions, and that will result in us treating people the way God intended for us to treat people. But it doesn't have to come with an exclamation or an announcement. It is in our behavior. And I think most people that I know that are people, particularly leaders who are people of faith, that is how we exhibit the principles of our faith, is through how we communicate with people and how we treat people and how we know God wants us to treat people from day to day without making an announcement about it.
And I think you said something important about having folks boots on the ground, a collaboration, being really intentional about leading from different levels.
Yes.
So that you're not trying to figure it out or carrying it all by yourself. It seems like you have a team's approach to it. Am I correct?
Yeah, I do have. I have a very democratic way of leadership, and I'm a situational leader, because you cannot be a senior leader and not be situational. There are times when I just have to make a decision and I can't put it to a floor for a vote, because the decision, like you asked the question about emergency situations, the decision needs to be made now. I'm at that level where I have to make the decisions based on the information that I have at that time. And so it's not a democratic way of making a decision. It's more of an aristocratic way. I make the decision based on the information that I have. But for someone who's worked their way up from the front line all the way up to the C-suite, I have the utmost respect for the people who are doing the work, because I'm not doing the work. I'm the visionary. And so I try to consult the people who are doing the work as much as possible. But of course, in certain situations, this is the reason why I have to know my people. I have to talk to them all year around, because there will be certain situations where I don't have time to consult with them. So if I haven't spoken to them, then I won't know what the pains that they're going through. I won't know that they're overworked. I won't know that they're stressed and understaffed. I won't know that the systems that we thought and we had envisioned would work for them is not working for them. And so that's why we have to talk to them ongoing, so that when it comes those times where we have to make those decisions immediately, at least we've had some ongoing interaction with them that's real time, up to date, that we can make the decision.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense there. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today about how we can look at systems and look at building that culture, and lots of different dynamics to really think about. And thanks for putting up your code too, so people can get more information.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you. Well, now we'll be turning over to Dr. Kara. What you just heard reframes leadership not as effort, but as intentional decision design. That leads us directly into our next segment. Before we play this segment, I want to share brief context. Dr. Kara Schedule was scheduled to join us live today. Due to a serious family emergency, she needed to be fully present with her family. Leadership sometimes means choosing people over platforms, and we honor that. She generously recorded her session earlier with us, so her insight could still serve you. Let's turn to her message now. Okay, there we go. With leadership and teams across an entire state, navigating different personalities, pressures, and priorities. From your perspective, what is the biggest challenge leaders face when trying to build a consistent team culture across large or complex organizations?
Well, thank you for the question. And hearing that back from you, it sounds bigger than it feels. And now I'm thinking, wow, this work really matters. So leading a state initiative pulls our team in many, many directions, and that can easily create culture barriers for the team. Because if we allow it to, we can let the tasks, the work, our calendar, all of the things competing for our time take over our culture. And so I would say that the greatest challenge truly is, where does the culture live in that leadership? How do you maintain the balance between the work and what has to get done and the people you're serving alongside, so that there's a culture that's built on trust and on honoring what we have to get done and the high standard we have to hold ourselves to?
Absolutely. I'm wondering too, are there some pieces in this framework that you sent us earlier that I should display?
Yeah, absolutely. I am excited to share my leadership journey through this statewide platform that I'm able to lead alongside different leaders and different vendors across the country. Before I really share any of that, though, I kind of want to begin with talking about and asking a real question.
Sure.
I wanted to ask the audience to think about this as we begin. Where does culture actually live? And I know that culture really doesn't live in policies and procedures or systems, although those things are wildly important to the success of an organization or an initiative. That's not really where culture lives. It lives in the people we serve, like I alluded to. And so as I begin my presentation, I really want everyone to think about a question, and I want to invite everyone to think honestly. Don't answer this question quick, okay? I want you to think about, what does it feel like to be led by me? Right now in this moment, what does it feel like to be led by me? What is your honest, true reflection of that? And Trevina, if you wouldn't mind starting the slides, I'll hop right into it. All right, so when you're thinking about that particular question, what does it feel like to be led by me? I don't want you to think about, what do I hope it feels like? I don't want you to think about, what are my intentions? I don't even want you to think about, what does it feel like to be led by me on a great day, on a Friday at 4 o'clock before a holiday? I mean, that's the best day, right? But instead, I want you to truly think, what does it feel like to be led by me on a hard day, in a time where there's a tense moment or a big decision, or where your team might be operating and missing a piece that's important for clarity. Think about those moments and when they're led by you. In my research, I examined leadership and decision-making through the lens of design-inspired leadership. And what surfaced immediately was the truth about culture, that it's not centered around your title or the structure of your organization. Instead, it's shaped by the everyday decisions leaders make when it's high complexity and low certainty. And that's really where my personal purpose is grounded in living big and loving bigger. And it completely collided with my leadership. In my book, Living Big and Loving Bigger, I write about my personal story of rebuilding from the inside out, what it was like to turn ashes into beauty, and about what I carried with me eventually became what others experienced from me. And that is no different in leadership. When you're trying to build culture, you have to build it from the inside out. You have to turn it into beauty. And right now in leadership, that feels difficult because leadership is different than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even a month ago in some cases. So this question I just asked you matters more now than ever before. The quote that was on the screen before was, as leaders, especially in culture, we don't just design processes and systems, we design experiences that people we serve alongside need. Trevina, if you wouldn't mind sliding over to the next slide. When we think about culture and the shift that it requires from us, we also have to be grounded in what we believe as a leader. And so I wanted to share what grounds me personally, and that's my faith. And I think that I have that in common with many of you joining here today. How I understand and see leadership, it's not about control. Instead, it's about stewardship of the people that I'm serving. And scripture really does remind me of that. How can I be quick to listen in our culture? How can I be slow to speak? And for me, most importantly, is how can I be slow to become angry or frustrated or disappointed even? That lens truly matters when we're making decisions about people. And so I want to talk a little bit about the bullet points on the screen you see here today, and even the image you see. Building culture is messy. You see the scribble there, but it leads to the heart of your team, which is the message I really want to share with you today. This is why leadership has to shift. It's not going to shift away from accountability, but it's going to shift towards an awareness of your people. What are they going through personally? What steps do they need to take next for growth? Where are they at in their leadership? It also has to shift not away from results, but towards relationships that are genuine, authentic, and built on real, true connection. And this one is sometimes hard. We really have to shift from expertise to learning in real time with the people that we serve. In my research, design-inspired leadership acknowledges that leaders in the 21st century are no longer expected, nor could they be, an expert in everything. Instead, they have to look for answers to their team. They have to they're expected to be better questioners and better at reflection than they ever were before. In my book, Live Big, Love Bigger, I talk about what happens in my personal life when I stopped shrinking myself and I started showing up for myself. I was shifting the culture for myself. And that same principle that I applied to myself applies here too. Leadership requires you to be present, not perform. And you see those things on the screen. When you're present, you bring more awareness to your staff. When you're present, you are able to build those relationships. And when you're present, you're able to learn in real time and turn that messy scribble into the true heart and culture of your team. You see, in today's day and age, people, they don't need to see you being perfect. They need to see you showing up as who you are in the vulnerable moments when you know exactly what to do and when you have no idea what's going on. They need to be able to see that. They need a leader who is 100% grounded in what they believe, no matter the situation. They need a leader who shows up to be curious. They need a leader who shows up willing to pause before they ever make a decision, and a leader that's brave enough to consider how their decisions impact the entire team. This shift isn't about trends. And I know that's what some of you are thinking right now, like, oh, maybe leadership will go back to its traditional sense. But the reality is the current state of the world we live in requires us to show up as a different leader. We have people who are struggling in the work environment, and because of that, the culture is different if we don't acknowledge it. Trevina, if you wouldn't mind sliding to the next slide. Before I wrap up our brief conversation here, I just want to circle all the way back around to where we began this conversation. I asked you to sit with a simple question, right? What does it feel like to be led by me? And I asked you to not answer it quickly and to be honest with yourself about it. And that question is hard. And you may not know the answer still, because the answer to that question doesn't come from just one meeting. It doesn't come from just one interaction with an initiative or a peer. And it doesn't come from just one decision. Instead, it's a combination of how you show up with purpose and how you show up with direction over a period of time. It's seen through the patterns of your engagement, through your presence, and through your purpose in the world you serve. And my research really does reinforce that truth. Culture is an accumulation of leadership moments. It's how we show up to lead big and love even bigger.
Wow, that's really powerful. Let me ask you, let's see. Many organizations believe culture is established through policies, frameworks, or initiatives. So in your experience, what actually shapes culture day to day, especially when leaders are stretched thin or managing crisis level demands?
That's a big question. And you're right. We often lean into those processes and procedures because they bring some sense of stability to our work. And they are wildly important to the success of an organization, yes, but not to the success of culture. A success of culture is built on people truly being seen before they're evaluated, included before they're directed, supported before they're measured, right? It's a simple choice. You have to choose your people first. You have to choose your people first.
I like that. Who are supported before they're measured, because oftentimes we're just evaluating, come into the evaluation, but you haven't really been supported before. Here's my evaluation of you. And it's often final.
How does that feel to be led that way? Like, right. How would it feel I always lean into that question that I asked the viewers. How does it feel to be led by me?
Right.
And if I can't answer that question, my culture is going to answer it for me. It's going to.
So I'm going to move to this question since we're wrapping to the end here. So Dr. Kara, we know leaders often carry responsibility while life is still unfolding around them. In seasons where leadership and life pressures collide, and you use this word, where have you experienced God's presence or guidance in helping you lead with clarity and compassion?
Wow. Well, I can say I've experienced that very thing. My personal life collides with my professional life all the time. And I am so happy to say I'm led by leaders who choose me first. And that's truly what you have to do, because there's not a single person that you lead that is somehow excluded from life.
Right.
Right. The reality is you might have systems and structures in place that help manage the day-to-day. But when there's an exception, when something arises, whether it's, I need to wear tennis shoes because I broke my ankle. Well, that doesn't go along with our policy. Or my daughter broke her finger. I need to extend my lunch. so that I can take her to the doctor. Or maybe it's simply, I'm going through a season that I'm not okay, and I need our impact chats to be more about my personal growth. How do you show up for that person in a way that helps them feel supported while there's still some level of accountability? The work still needs to move on, but we can make adjustments to make that a reality. And sometimes it's just the person here, it's just the other person across the table hearing you say, it's okay, I've got you. We will figure this out. It may mean shifting some things, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that honesty. And that's definitely true, and something I think lots of leaders should bring into the next year, thinking about, because oftentimes it appears as a challenge with this person or that person, but we choose how we want to be a leader and show up for others. So
my faith doesn't tell me who I value. It reminds me that everyone deserves to be valued. Everyone deserves that. You know, my faith helps shape how I listen to everyone before I react. It helps. I spoke about that. How am I quick to listen? How am I slow to respond? And how am I not angered easily? That's how you lead with humility. That's how you show up for your people. You know, if somebody makes a mistake, you can choose to see it as a mistake, or you can ask the question, what am I not seeing here that could be changing things for this person? Asking that question first gives them the opportunity to share what's their reality, and then you can lead from there.
Right. Thank you. That's so powerful. Well, thank you, Dr. Kara Schedule, for sharing your wisdom, leadership, and heart with us. Your perspective reminds us that leadership is not only about systems and outcomes, but about faith, presence, and care for people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was an honor to share with you guys today.
That was powerful.
All right. Well, our final speaker today is Yolanda Crenshaw. And Yolanda is CEO of BRIO ÉLAN and formerly served in senior engineering and leadership roles at Citigroup, where performance expectations were high and burnout was costly. Her work focuses on helping organizations prevent burnout by designing corporate wellness programs that actually change outcomes. So, what would you say is the biggest misconception executives have about burnout, and how should leaders reframe wellness as a core leadership system, not a perk?
Well, thank you for that question, Trevina. I think a core misperception about burnout is that it's an individual or a personal thing. I think a lot of people believe when someone's going through burnout that this is something that they're doing, and they're not looking at maybe the systems or the career or the job workplace constraints that cause that. Something similar to what Dr. Karen Hills Pruden was speaking about earlier. You have to look at, if there's new things coming in, who's going to get the brunt of that additional stuff. So for that, I think that's the misperception, is that we think that it's a personal thing. Someone's going through something, they can't handle it. Really, it's the systems that are failing that person. But I will say the systems also can be turned internally. And this is where I come in with my tools and strategies, because I do want to teach people personally what they can do when the stakes get high and when they are balancing personal, work, everything in between, and they're trying to keep all the balls in the air. It's really difficult, but there are tools that can help us before we get to that burnout level.
Let's take a look at that.
Well, thank you for bringing up my slides. This is just our presentation for today. It's the wellness strategies for high-performing leaders, especially women. You can move on to the next slide if you can, please, Trevina. So, just like you just asked, Is burnout a system failure? High performance is not the problem. We need to always understand that high performing women leaders, we carry dual cognitive roles and loads. We have our performance, which is in our career, and of course, whatever other opportunities that we take up. As women leaders, usually we are involved in other organizations. We also have our families that we also carry emotional load for. And then we have our performative, which is our jobs, our organizations that we also lead. So we are always carrying extra load. High performing women are not burning out because they lack grit, because we are strong. They're burning out because our systems reward output and not sustainability. HR leaders have been asked to solve retention problems, engagement, well-being, but with tools that were never designed for executive level stress. We are here to bridge that gap. You can go to the next slide, please, Trevina. So here on this slide, we speak to the 3 pillars that we try to enforce for self-care and wellness. We have regulation, where we want to make sure that your nervous system can be reset quickly, not days from now, but within minutes. We have rituals, which are wellness embedded into our daily activities and something that we can do on a consistent basis. And we have reinforcement. These are tools and touch points, even an accountability partner, but tools and touch points that can sustain that new behavior that we're implementing. So these 3 pillars of BRIO ÉLAN and what I'm trying to bring to our high performing women, these are designed for high performers. They're time efficient, they're scalable, and they're measurable, because you're going to see the increase in productivity when you include these pillars into your daily routine. What we want to do is our programs meet leaders where they are, in between meetings, decisions, and demands. We don't ask women leaders to do more. We meet them where they are, and we redesign how they recover. Can you go to the next slide, please, Trevina? So what does this mean, or what does this look like within an organization? So wellness that works at the leadership level, these are 3 ways that we can come in here and help your staff and employees, especially high performing ones, how we can get them reset and prevent them from going through any type of burnout. We have executive reset sessions, and these are micro workshops so that the women leaders and senior leaders can get together and learn more about strategies to keep their wellness intact. Hi, I'm sorry that this slide is looking a little wonky, but sorry, I guess it came in wrong. I apologize. We also have leadership ritual kits. So when you're supporting your staff and your employees, you can give them guided practices and sensory tools that they can use at home for self-care and wellness. That includes aromatherapy, that includes breath work and instructions on how to do that. These guided practices have been taught in workshops, and this is how you, as the person bearing the brunt of the personal and the workload from work, you now know how to manage the additional stress. So these are good take-home tools, and your employee or your staff should feel appreciated by getting wellness instructions and gifts from their employer. We also are HR aligned programming. So I know DEI is something that people don't like to talk about, but it is about diversity and equitable inclusion. And so when HR people are called in to help with staff, it's for retention because they don't want to lose their high performers. and it's for leadership development as well. So we are aligned with all these steps to include into your workspace to help your employees feel the wellness and not feel the brunt of the workplace pressure. So if you see that impact bar, it looks a little wonky, but if you see on the upper side of it, retention goes up when you include wellness practices. Leadership presence comes up. You see strong performers come out of your staff, and engagement also increases. And what goes down is burnout signals. So when you feel appreciated, especially women leaders, when they feel regulated, supported, and resourced, performance improves naturally. This isn't a perk. This is leadership infrastructure.
Leadership infrastructure. Amazing. Let me ask you one question briefly, because we're coming to the end of our hour.
Sure.
So how should, you talked a lot about leadership and alignment, and could you just kind of walk us through how leaders can operationalize one of these elements inside the organization before burnout shows up as disengagement or turnover? Do you want me to repeat that?
Yes, please. I think I got it.
Okay. Okay, your slide states that burnout is not a performance problem, but a system failure, and introduces the BRIO ÉLAN model of regulate, reinforce, and ritualize. Can you walk us through how leaders can operationalize one of these elements inside their organization before burnout shows up as disengagement or turnover in less than 60 seconds?
Yes, well, leaders or employers definitely should be engaging with their employees, because the burnout is the worst as someone who's gone through burnout. If you can engage with them with, hold on, let me look at. So regulation is something that I teach, and I'm not sure that the employer would know how to do that. But if we can talk about touch points, that would be a good place where someone who does not know wellness strategies can start. So making it a thing where you talk about walking, drinking water, that's something that is easy baseline that someone who does not know wellness strategies can start. And I think a lot of employers try to engage there first. They start with the walking challenges and drinking eight cups of water a day.
Right.
So that's the first part that they can start.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. I couldn't get to some of the other questions, but we heard quite a bit about how being really intentional about your corporate wellness program can help stabilize your staff and the commitment, their engagement, their morale, those types of things. So thank you so much for being with us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. As we close today, I want to offer you a clear next step, not more information. What you heard today likely surfaced something: a leadership pressure point, a people challenge, or a system that feels heavier than it should. That's exactly what the 5-minute organizational audit is designed to clarify. In just a few minutes, it will show you where leadership load is concentrated, where people systems are unclear, and where burnout risk is structural, not personal. You'll see a QR code and coupon. It should be on the side of your screen there in the top corner. You can see it there. Scan that. It will take you to the page where you can immediately after this session join me in Zoom. It'll take you to the audit. We can do that audit in real time as it reveals results to you, where you can also ask questions and we can address some of those in real time. That space is not about fixing everything today. It is about gaining visibility before stepping into 2026. Leadership does not require silent endurance. It requires clarity, structure, and support. Take the audit. Join me in Zoom. Let's close this year with insight, not assumption. And thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you tomorrow for day 3, project management and executive systems, where clarity turns into execution.